Forgotten is a Korean psychological thriller that was released in 2017 and can be watched on Netflix. It's 1997. The film follows a 21-year-old young man called Jin Seok, a young high school student who in the beginning we see have a nightmare and wakes up in a car with his mom and dad and his older brother Yoo Seok, who are all moving in to their new home. As the narrator of the film, Jin talks fondly of Yoo Seok as the perfect example of a man. Handsome, charming, well-groomed, superstar student, graduated from the top elite university, which, if you watch our Korean teacher video, you can see how tough that is in Korea. Amazing cello player, tennis pro, a handyman, and doesn't drink or smoke. Just the man for you! Manners are prime, polite, never says vulgar words, logical, and fun. Seriously, if there's anyone to make you feel insecure about yourself, Yoo Seok is the guy. He's just too perfect. Well, almost perfect. Yoo Seok was involved in a car accident. They didn't go into much detail, which is a good thing in our opinion. But what's important is that Yoo Seok now limps on his left leg. This information is important. The film doesn't portray Jin Seok as having any jealousy or envy towards Yoo Seok. In fact, Jin Seok mentions how much he admires Yoo Seok greatly and sees him as a role model.
As the family moves in, their dad mentions that one of the bedrooms in the house is locked and that nobody should go in there. This was at the request of the previous owner who, according to the father, practically begged him to keep that room locked and that they will come back in a few weeks to collect whatever is inside. We also learn that Jin Seok is preparing for his exams, which causes him a bit of stress and he's taking medicine to calm his anxiety. Again, we go through the importance of these exams in our Korean teacher video. This is where the film does a good job avoiding unnecessary plot filler and gets you already invested in such early stages of the film. The stage is already set, there's a mysterious room, and young Jin is under medication for his exams. So you can probably guess by now that both of these plot devices will play off each other. As Jin Seok is laying in bed late at night, he begins hearing things from the locked room. He walks to the room, tries to open it, but is stopped by Yoo Seok. Jin gets startled and tells Yoo Seok that he heard something from the room. Yoo is always looking out for his younger brother and is concerned for him as he didn't hear anything and wonders if the stress of the exams are getting to Jin. Yoo takes Jin out for a night walk and the two chat about life. Yoo gets a call from their father asking to check something out back at the house. Yoo tells Jin to wait while he goes helps, so while Jin hangs out for a bit, we see Yoo walking home and gets kidnapped. Who knew the streets of Seoul was so rough?
Another plot device that has your head scratching, in a good way. A black minivan pulls up and a couple of dudes in black clothing jumps Yoo and takes him. Jin sees this all happening but can do nothing about it. However, he does memorize the license plate of the car. He runs home and tells everyone in a state of terror that Yoo Seok has been kidnapped. The detectives come over to find out what happened. Jin tells them the license plate number, but the detectives suspiciously tell Jin he must have gotten the plate number wrong because that car doesn't exist. Maybe a sense of gaslighting. What's also suspicious is that his parents don't seem all that bothered that Yoo was kidnapped. Like, we've seen enough East Asian dramas and movies to know this is all a bit too nonchalant acting by the parents who've just had their superstar son kidnapped.
The police try to find Yoo, but give up after 2 weeks. We also learn that Jin is having the same nightmare every night as the one he had in the car at the beginning of the film. A nightmare where he sees someone is being tortured. He also gets creeped out even more by the sounds in the locked room. He tries to hide under his duvet as he hears something coming towards him from the room. And in true Asian horror fashion, he sees a screaming Asian girl doing a frog splash on him. Jin wakes up, so we assume he's dreaming or hallucinating. And then Yoo Seok returns after being gone for 19 days. Yep, he just rocks up as though he just came back from a gap year and it's all like, "I'm home bitches, what's good?" And he doesn't remember a single thing while being kidnapped.
Here's when things start to get weird. Jin Seok gets suspicious of Yoo Seok. He wakes up in the middle of the night where he finds Yoo Seok is missing. Is he kidnapped again? Nope. And Yoo-seok is all like, I didn't go nowhere. And he said he must be dreaming. Jin then notices Yoo-seok limped on his other leg. Jin calls him out on it, but Yoo-seok tells Jin that he's tripping. We then see one night Jin passed out from studying and Yoo-seok looking like he's about to stab Jin in the eye with Jin's pencil. But instead, Yoo-seok goes for another mysterious night walk, and we find out Jin was pretending to be asleep, so he decides to follow Yoo-seok. Yoo-seok ain't that perfect no more. 1. He's in some cool leather jacket. 2. He's walking normally. And 3. He smokes. Oh no! Not smoking! Yoo jumps in a cab, and Jin follows him in another cab. We found out these are free cabs in Seoul, by the way. Like seriously, no one paid for their ride. These Koreans have it good. He follows Yoo into some shady part of the city and sees Yoo talking to 2 men. The men who were the detectives from earlier. The 3 guys spot Jin-seok spying on them, and Jin is like, nope. An intense chase scene plays out, and Jin almost manages to escape from the 2 men, but then has a cloth with chloroform pressed against his mouth and nose until he faints. Then bam! Jin is back awake in his room, back at his desk. He sees Yoo in his bed and starts questioning him. Yoo is confused, doesn't understand the accusation Jin is making. Jin tries to attack Yoo-seok, but Yoo-seok stops him and tries to reason with him. Yoo-seok tells him that none of those things happened. From the pencil to the taxi you took, and those men that chased you. It's all in his head, and he questions if Jin has been taking his meds, which Jin admits he hasn't.
As Yoo-seok goes to work, Jin finds the pen that he believed Yoo-seok was thinking about stabbing him with, and then it hits him. Jin never told Yoo-seok about no taxi. How he only realizes that now is a mystery. It's the first thing that we've noticed when we were watching this. Jin knows something is up, or is it still the meds? The film does a really good delivery of making you question who is in the wrong. Is it Jin? Is he our false narrator? Or is it the world around him? Because even when Jin-seok tells his mother about Yoo-seok being someone else, we then see from Jin's perspective that the mother's on the phone saying Jin has figured us out. But hey, that locked room is back, and we see Jin finally go in and see Yoo-seok is hanging from the ceiling. Except it turned out to be a dream. Who is telling the truth here? And also, what a great use of dream sequences to throw off the audience.
Jin is now suspicious of his mom and tries to make a run for it. It gets all a bit Truman Show. Now his dad's like, where you going, son? You absolutely can't leave. And some random dudes, likely the dudes we saw kidnapping Yoo earlier, turn up. Jin ain't ready to have a family therapy session and makes a dash for it, and makes it to the police station. He tells the police he believes he has been kidnapped and brainwashed by these people. The police somehow believe him, but then it gets insane. The police find his details. They ask him that since he was born in 1977, he's now 41. Right? Pause. Jin-seok looks confused and says, no, I'm 21. The police show him it's in fact 2017, not 1997. Jin looks in the mirror and finds a more middle-aged man staring back at him. I'll sing Reflection for you. When will my reflection show who I am inside? Jin returns home, now looking as the older version of himself. He walks into the locked room and finds a crime scene. Yoo-seok walks in behind and states that his plan has failed again.
Yoo-seok, now without the superstar persona, starts to explain. He tells Jin-seok that 20 years ago, a family in this house was killed. The police couldn't find the killer, and so he, Yoo-seok, and the so-called parents were privately hired to catch the killer. Yoo-seok states that they were able to track the killer as Jin-seok, not showing how, by the way, which is important to keep in mind. We see Yoo-seok and his boys torturing Jin-seok, which turns out to be the recurring nightmare that Jin was having in the car in the beginning of the film and in the house. Jin said he doesn't know anything about killing a family, no matter how much he was being tortured. But Yoo-seok knew for a fact he was the killer. Somehow. Yoo-seok then mentions that he had an expert in forensic hypnosis. The man explained that Jin experienced an extremely distressing time in his 20s and has erased all memories of it, also known as dissociative amnesia. Therefore, Jin really didn't have any memories of it. The hypnosis guy said that the best thing they can do is hypnotize Jin and recreate a scene where they go back in time to when Jin got involved in the incident and experienced the traumatic event. They also put him on pills called barbital to help his mind with going back in time. Shout out to the writer or researcher of this film. This is a real drug that is used for hypnosis and as a sedative.
As Jin is hypnotized, you can see he's also having flashbacks of his own. They hypnotized him and put him in the car with the hypnotist as the dad, an actress as the mother, and the ringleader as Yoo-seok. We then learn that the sounds coming from the locked door were Yoo-seok's gang, who were setting up the crime scene to help trigger Jin's memory of the murder. Also, the whole thing with Yoo-seok getting kidnapped, that was the police who were arresting Yoo-seok for fraud and assault. Although Yoo-seok managed to bribe his way out of the arrest, it did put the team behind schedule for triggering Jin's memories. So we hear the entire plan revealed, but Jin is still adamant it wasn't him who killed that family, but Yoo-seok is just as adamant that it was him that killed 2 people. Jin then manages to escape from Yoo-seok and the gang, but while fleeing, both Jin and Yoo-seok get hurt and are hospitalized.
As Jin is being rushed to hospital, his memories return. We see the 21-year-old Jin catching up to his family and driving together. While driving, the car crashes. We then see 6 months later, the government of South Korea announcing that the country is going to go through a tough recession due to the dire state of the economy. Jin's parents have died from the car crash, but his brother is on life support. Jin is doing his best to make some money, but is having no luck. He posts on a forum that he's willing to do any work for his ill brother and pay for his medical bills. His doctor tells Jin that Jin has been through a lot and it's hard to keep dragging his brother on life support. Soon, Jin's brother will need to have surgery to save his life. Jin was getting desperate to the point he was willing to sell his own organs. But then, on the forum he posted, someone known as Bluebeard asked if he's willing to kill for money. Although hesitant at first, he eventually agrees to do it. Bluebeard sends him the address and tells him to kill the woman Oli and leave the kids alone. The address is the house that this film is entirely based on. Jin goes in, but has second thoughts and decides to leave without carrying out the tasks. As he is about to leave, the woman of the house finds him and screams. Jin asks for her to not scream and apologizes for barging in, promising to leave. He even comments that he must have gone insane for a moment. The woman agrees to not scream, but then her daughter catches them and she screams. She runs and Jin chases her while begging her to stop screaming. He ends up chasing her into a room, the locked room. He tussles with her and accidentally stabs her in the gut. Jin is in a fit of rage and panic. The mum comes in, sees her daughter stabbed and screams herself. Jin again panics and tells the mum not to scream and ends up killing her too. As Jin leaves the house, a little boy finds him and asks where his mum and sister are. Jin tells the boy that he'll bring them back and that the boy should go under his duvet and count to 100 10 times. As the boy goes to his bed, Jin leaves the house and sees the entire family photo. The mum, the daughter, the brother, and the dad, who is also the doctor looking over Jin's brother.
Jin confronts the doctor on the rooftop of the hospital. The doctor tells a distraught Jin Seok he took out some life insurance for his wife, and by having her sacrifice, it would give his entire family enough money to not be on the streets. The doctor is mad at Jin for killing his daughter and tries to kill him. Jin tries to resist so much that the doctor is suddenly hanging off the rooftop and holding on to Jin's arm. But the doctor couldn't hold on for much longer and falls to his death. There was a moment during the tussle between the doctor and Jin where Jin cries, "Why me?" It's at this point we personally felt really sad for Jin. His whole life just turned upside down out of his control. It wasn't because of any mistake he made, just the circumstances of his surroundings. Jin is not a killer, an antagonist, or a psychopath. He's a young man, lost and abandoned without a glimmer of hope. The actor Kang Ha-neul portrayed this fantastically, and a shout-out has to be given throughout this film of this young actor playing such a complex character.
We return to 2017, where Jin is now in hospital and hooked up to life support. Jin wakes up and sees Yoo stitched up and watching him. Yoo approaches Jin's bed with a needle and what we assume is poison. At this point, you wonder why on earth is Yoo going to kill him? Wasn't he hired to find and confirm the killer? Jin musters up some strength and asks about the victim's family, and Yoo is like, "Why do you care?" To which Jin replies, "Tell them that I'm truly sorry." Yoo pauses on the homicide and realizes Jin regained his memory. Yoo asks why did he do it. Jin doesn't respond. Yoo then believes Jin was put up to it and asks if the woman's husband put him up to it. Yoo mentions that he received some information that a month before the murder took place, the husband took out some insurance policies, and if Jin knew anything about that. Jin remains quiet. Yoo keeps asking him, saying the victim's family deserves to know the truth, that the little boy deserves to know the truth. And then Yoo says, "You told me that you would bring my mum home if I counted from 1 to 100 10 times. Yoo-suk, is his name even Yoo at this point of the film? I don't even know. It's the little boy from that family. That's why the man previously known as Yoo-suk knew that Jin was the killer. He states he vowed to find the man that killed his family and get back at him for that night. And here you have to give the actor who played Yoo, Kim mu-yeol, a massive round of applause. His acting of this climatic scene was perfect. The way he built it up in the delivery of his sentences and the emotions he built up was nothing short of amazing. You feel this immediate shock and sudden sadness as he explained what he went through since that night.
Jin could only just say sorry multiple times. Yoo is still adamant to know if the husband put him up to it, asking if his dad was behind all this. But Jin says he did it alone. Jin felt for Yoo and knew if he was to tell him his dad set this all up, it would be the breaking point for the young man. But Yoo figured it out. He didn't believe it was a coincidence his dad took out those insurance policies a month before the incident. Yoo leaves Jin unharmed. A distraught Yoo walks around the hospital towards a window. Broken, lost, and damaged to know his father set this all up, he finds a window and jumps to his death. Jin, also empty and disenchanted, ends his life with a syringe that Yoo initially was going to kill him with, both ending their lives to forget the pain. Get it? Forget? Forgotten?
So I'm going to talk about why Forgotten should have been the film that put Korean cinema on the radar, rather than, let's say, Parasite. And this is just a personal opinion. Alice hasn't seen Parasite at the time of this essay, so she's neutral at this point. As someone who's watched a bit of Asian cinema, I was surprised that Parasite won the amount of accolades that it did, including the Best Picture at the Oscars. Don't get me wrong, Parasite was a very good film. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend. But for it to be the beacon of modern day Korean cinema kind of bewilders me. Although it's a very good story of a family in poverty taking out a rich family from the inside, it's just that kind of story could be told in a lot of countries and many different cultures. It would absolutely work if the film was based in India, for example, China, Singapore, Malaysia, or even Hong Kong. I state these countries because it's quite common for rich families to have maids and servants from poorer backgrounds. Heck, even at a stretch, it could work in the US. The thing with Forgotten is that it does a better job of showcasing the uniqueness of Korean cinema and showcasing the Korean culture. The pain that Jin went through during the East Asian recession is just an exaggerated version of what South Koreans went through during that period in the late 90s. It was a horrible time for their economy. There were many people that were in Jin's predicament. Poor, jobless, living in terrible conditions, literally selling organs to make ends meet, and many couldn't afford hospital bills, which in turn deteriorated their health. Not many people talk about this period of Korea's history, even though it's so recent. Today we look at South Korea and see all the glam and shine, but they have come a long way in the last 20 to 30 years. I thought this film did a decent job of showing how that affected a person in the most extreme circumstances, whilst at the same time telling a near flawless psychological thriller that was easily digestible for even Western audiences, who probably didn't know much about the East Asian recession. There have been other recent Korean films that have showcased their culture well and intertwined it into the story of the film, which can still be appreciated by a Western audience. One of my favourite horror films is The Wailing, which does an amazing job of putting legitimate fear of Korean shamans into the audience, without confusing you if you don't know anything about shamanism. Now that's a horror, so it's not to everyone's taste, which is why I'd say Forgotten would have been a better film to represent the uniqueness of Korean cinema, at least more so than Parasite. But given how popular Parasite is, if you have seen it and seen Forgotten, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments about which you found better, or if there's something that's even better than those two.
You can probably tell by now we both loved Forgotten, a story that is so complex in writing, but simple in storytelling. There's so many things to be aware of, but the film doesn't overwhelm you with all the information. It's not just throwaway horror or thriller scenes that have no relevance later on in the film. Every scene, line, and moment has an importance. And as an audience member, you can enjoy it in any way you like, whether it's full of the excitement of conjuring up fun things in your head to figure out what's going on, or you just sit back and relax and let the film unravel. There are very few films that let the audience enjoy their film in multiple ways, and Forgotten is one of them. Its setting is small and impactful, and the actors' delivery of their roles is nothing short of incredible. Even if you watched this review but haven't seen the film, we highly recommend you to watch the film based on the acting alone.
Thank you guys so much for watching our video.
If you liked our video, make sure to give it a like. And if you like what we do, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell.
See you guys in the next one.
Bye!